Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday morning for Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad that you've joined us this morning to talk about issues that concern us as people of the greater Joplin area, and especially for those of us as people of faith. This morning is going to be one of those shows that I'm going to love, and the reason why is because we're talking this morning a little bit about the history of the Sisters of Mercy here in our area. This year marks a big anniversary year of 135 years since the Mercies came to Joplin. And so my guest this morning is going to be Sister Joan Margaret Schwager, who is one of our last two Mercies here in town, and we were so pleased to get her many years ago to come, and she's been working in our Catholic schools, which is really what the sisters first came to do. So we're going to be talking with her about that history. We're going to be talking a little bit about what the Mercies are all about now and how that ties in with our hospital community and our school community, and we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, so don't go away. Get that cup of coffee and join us, but we'll be right back with Sister Joan Margaret Schwager.
I have arthritis in my knees, and it was just excruciating. I wish I would have done something sooner. I found myself not able to go up and down stairs, which is bad because we realized we were going to have to sell our house. We decided just to take the worst one first, and we did. I was back to work in 6 weeks. 6 months later, I had surgery on the second one, and I'm back to work in 5 weeks. And I was a little scared, a little apprehensive, even though I knew everything that was going to happen. But I was just impressed. Life is short, and I waited. I think I waited too long.
Well, again, thank you for joining us for another Sunday morning here on Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning is Sister Joan Margaret Schwager. Joan, I know you because I work with you, and I know your history, how you came here and all those good things, but why don't you introduce yourself first, and then let's talk a little bit about the history of the Mercies here in Joplin.
Okay, thank you. I'm Sister Joan. I have been a Sister of Mercy, actually, this past year, 50 years.
There you go.
And I came to Joplin 10 years ago. And I have to say, it was part of your responsibility for getting me here. I was somewhat recruited by Sister Norbert.
God love her.
And you were the one who kind of put a plug in her ear.
Well, she was getting old, and we were losing our Mercies, and so I happened to be at a meeting with Sister Joan, and I just said to her, she was going out of vocation ministry, and I said, what do you have planned for next year? She said, that's an interesting question. And then she started talking about all these different options, and I said, well, have you ever thought about coming to Joplin? And she was like, well, what would I do? And so I thought, when I get home, I got to talk to Sister Norbert and get Sister Norbert to put that bug in your ear. Well, Norbert's kind of a force of nature. The only one that was probably more of a force of nature than Norbert was Carita, who worked at the hospital.
Yes.
And so those women could move mountains, and obviously Norbert called and didn't relent until you at least came and checked the place out. And we're glad that she did, and we're glad that you did, because we've had you now and for the last 10 years, and we hadn't had any Mercies in our school, and that's where you all started out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually I think I was like the first sister back into the schools in about 35 years.
Yeah.
So, and I've been delighted to be here. I've taught in all the grades from literally preschool through 12th grade.
Yeah.
And I've done different things like visiting classrooms or doing art classes or Spanish classes, religion classes, whatever the school system needed, which is pretty much what Mercy Sisters do. They go where they're needed.
Well, we like utility players, and you're a good utility player. It's just like, we need somebody, okay, let's plug her in here, let's plug her in there. And one of the things that I think has been wonderful about this last year has been we've given you a chance to do more about the Mercy Mission, which I think is great.
Yes. The Mercy Mission, for me, it's been really, especially this year, the 135th year, how do we get that out to our students a little bit more? How do we get that out to our parents and to our parishes? And so it's been a really interesting year to work on talking little bits of what the Mercy history is, and then a little bit about values.
Well, let's talk about history. Let's talk about that. So 135 years. You know, again, I'll start a little bit and then I'll let you pick it up where the sisters come in online.
Okay.
Because my long ago predecessor, okay,
Yes.
had a vision. He wanted a grade school for his kids. He wanted Catholic education. He wanted that to happen. That was happening a lot in the East, but it wasn't happening in this little, you know, mining frontier town. And so he decided he wanted that done. So he started a school, but he had some lay teachers. The lay teachers kept getting engaged and getting married and then leaving. And he thought, I am never going to have a permanent school with, you know, permanent staff unless I can get some religious to come here and teach. And so that's when the invitation went out to the Mercies, among others. But you're the ones who bit and the ones who came.
Yes, it happened that priest was newly ordained, and the bishop at the time was the bishop of Kansas City, and he had a niece and also someone who he fostered who were Sisters of Mercy, and this young priest met one of them at some point before they ever came here, and when he came here to St. Peter's Parish. He needed somebody, and then he remembered them and contacted them. And so it ended up that there were 13 sisters who came. Mother Ignatius Walker was the leader, and they came from Louisville. And in that group of 13, there were teachers as well as nurses. And so they started school here, Our Lady of Mercy Academy, in 1885. And at that time, it was just for girls. And we had girls that boarded who came from Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and lived with the sisters.
Sister Norbert from Lamar.
That's right, Sister Norbert.
Sister Norbert came
Yes.
from Lamar. That was her big claim to fame. So she came down and
Yes.
boarded, yeah.
And they had the girls, some of the girls from the city. But to get here was quite the story. When the sisters arrived, they arrived by train.
Five-day trip from Louisville to here. Yeah.
And when they got here, they were on the same train as a troupe of entertainers, Native Americans putting on this Wild West show kind of thing. And so when they got off of the train, the people who were there to meet the train were hooping and hollering because they had this troupe, and then they had these funny-looking people dressed very oddly. And so they gave them less than a nice welcome.
Well, yeah, they thought you were there for entertainment rather than for, you know, mission work.
That's right. So when the sisters got to the rectory where the pastor was and had a nice dinner and all of that.
Okay, I'm just going to put in a little, you know, so this was like where the Griffin building is now, pretty much close to there,
Yes,
because that's where
yes.
the old depot was.
Right.
Okay, then they had to walk their way through town over to where St. Peter's is, you know, where they were going to have dinner and everything. So again, having to, you know, make that trek. It was only a few blocks, but still. You know, again, imagine catcalls and all those other things that were happening to these poor sisters that were like walking through town. And some of the younger, less seasoned ones were probably scared to death about walking through that mining town.
Yes. After their dinner, Sister Ignatius took them to the church. Now, it wasn't the St. Peter's Church that's there now, but and when they got in there, they noticed that the side altars were dry good boxes covered with a white cloth. And she said to the sisters, if this is good enough for Jesus, then it should be good enough for us. And so with that, they decided to stay.
Well, and I imagine they really, after that walk through town, I imagine they also figured out that if anybody needed them, you know, this mining town might have needed a little softening up, which was one of the reasons why they wanted to create such a church community and families and all that stuff, because prior to the taming of Joplin was a pretty wild and rough place.
It was. In fact, what they found was mostly Protestants or atheists, and not too many Catholics.
Yeah.
But
we're still in the minority, but we like it here.
Yes. and I think they found that through their good sense of humor, their charitable works, and one of the things they did was to visit the sick in their homes, and I think that won the hearts of so many people. And their very strong educational background, they did win the hearts of the city. And so it was a very possible thing to be able to continue with starting a school and continuing, as we have for 135 years.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting. So the history then starts to diverge a little bit, too, because the sisters were here teaching in the school for 10 years before we started the hospital.
Yes.
And so that's another chapter, if you will,
Yes.
which we'll get into here in just a second. But the sisters did come. They started the school. The school became very strong. The academy got going, and again, the school for high school girls. Okay. And again, eventually became co-ed. The boys could go too, but for a long time it was just the academy and then the grade school. Then that group of sisters wrote back and tried to recruit another group of sisters to come because they didn't like the fact that the minors were getting injured, and if they had to be taken to the hospital, they had to go as far as Fort Scott.
That's right.
And the sister just saw that a lot of them, if they were hurt that bad and had to go to Fort Scott, a lot of them weren't coming back. And so the sisters really saw a need and convinced the second group to come and to start nursing care here in the Joplin area, in the hospital.
Yeah, and they were very fortunate that they had a couple of sisters, one of them, Sister Frances Sullivan, who was a nurse, who saw this and could actually get some of that started so that they had what they needed to begin with.
Yeah.
And it was what they saw one day when they were out walking, and somebody had fallen into one of the holes in the street, which was somebody's mine, and had broken a leg. And it's once they realized that they have to have some kind of medical facility here in the city.
Yeah. Interesting. And then the first hospital didn't necessarily make it, and so they had to kind of like go at it again around a different way. And then I love the story about the fact that of raising the money to actually build the hospital, and the miners, it was kind of like one of the first early insurance programs that ever existed, because the miners then would pay a quarter out of their salary, and they would pay that to help run the hospital and keep it working. And then they were given then free medical care, if any of them that were supporting it in that way with that donation from their check, then they were able to receive the free medical care. So it's kind of like a homemade insurance company right there, and who'd have thunk right here in Joplin,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that those were that entrepreneur spirit that so many of these women had who came here because they saw all the opportunities to make a difference and to make the city better and to make our community better. And that to me, I just always, whenever I'm reading the history, I'm amazed because I think about, this woman who didn't know anything, just had an introduction, of a priest. Well, okay, let's go to this mining frontier town and take it on. It's amazing. And now, and this is what I say to all the Catholics, and so tonight, this morning, I'll actually say it to everybody here. We've been blessed in 135 years to have the Mercies here. What would our community look like if the Mercies had never come to Joplin? You're part of that. But I'm just saying, what would our community look like if the Sisters of Mercy had never come to Joplin? And that's an interesting thing, because you can't hardly think about Joplin without, at least from where I sit, without having that intertwined history that has done its thing for that long. So yeah, interesting. My guest this morning, Sister Joan Margaret Schwager, who is a Sister of Mercy, and she's one of the two here in town that are still with us, carrying on that legacy of 135 years of the Mercies coming to Joplin and taking up residence and ministry here among us. So we're going to be right back after a quick break. Sister Joan and I'll talk a little bit about the rest of the history and a little bit about the mission that we're talking about that the Sisters of Mercy still do throughout the world. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, thank you for joining us this morning for another morning of Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning, Sister Joan Margaret Schwager, who is a Sister of Mercy. We're celebrating this year, this Jubilee year, with the Sisters of Mercy coming to Joplin. So the hospital's celebrating, and of course our Catholic schools are celebrating because we've had y'all for 135 years. So what does that feel like as a Sister of Mercy to come in here after knowing all that history and all those things? And you just come in 10 years. So you came in 120 years in. And now you've been here for 10 years. What reactions, experiences, those things?
Well, it's been a great experience. Not only because I work in the school, but I've also worked at one of the parishes and also work at the outreach house. Mm-hmm. And so I'm able to do some of the very same ministries that the sisters have done in very beginning, helping those that need more help. So most of it's in education for me, but the outreach house helps the people who are hungry, which is certainly one of the first things the sisters did, was to make sure that the people that they visited, the sick, poor, also had some food with them. They often took like loaves of bread, things like that with them. And I'm just so glad to be part of what that legacy is. Every time I go into the St. Peter's Church, the first thing I look at is the big crucifix that's way up on the wall, yep, because that came out of the original convent. Right. And I look at that and say, I'm still carrying on your legacy.
Yeah. And again, I'm happy that cross is where it is now too, because what was always one of the things when people come in and say, well, where's the cross? And there is one. It's right above, it's in the old main altar that's in the back, sits behind. But you gotta know what you're looking for and looking at it. That was in the sacristy, and when we redid the church many years ago, I said, I want to take that out of the sacristy. I want to put it someplace where everybody can see it when they come in, because again, that's part of the legacy. And I mean, and I know it's especially a part of your legacy as a Sister of Mercy. Mm-hmm. But for us at St. Peter's, that legacy goes all the way back to 1877, even before the Mercies were invited to come and be part of it. But for me, that's all tied together in this great big, as we trace ministry for us in ministry, the healing ministry of Jesus, being there for people. In that mining town, being there still today to do those things, teaching, healing, that's all just part of the great big thing that all comes together. Yes. And I hope, and I think the Catholics of the area do that, but I just hope everybody feels that that's part of their legacy here in the Joplin area, not even just the Catholics, mm-hmm, but anybody who loves to see that kind of ministry done in the name of a person that many of us share, Jesus. That to me is an important thing. So, yeah. So you've been here for 10 years, and again, mostly in the school, but I love the fact that you bring up the outreach and those kinds of things. The hospital is also doing some celebrations this year.
They are. They started opening their 125th on October 24th with various activities at the hospital itself, and they have things going on all year, and you can probably connect with that on their website. And there's some of that stuff will be, obviously will be out in the public, and some of it will be more celebrated within the hospittal itself. Yeah.
So 130 years, 120, 130 years and 120 years, kind of coincide. But again, we'll claim you all the way back for the 135 actually, right?
Right, 135.
Yeah, 135. So in terms of that, why don't you say a little bit about the Mercy mission and values? Because I think that's one of those things a lot of people don't understand, that some of those, like for example, even when the hospital hires, mm-hmm, they look to see whether somebody's got a Mercy fit. And everybody says, well, that's strange. What do you mean? Well, you're hiring a doctor. What do you mean would they have a Mercy fit? Or you're hiring a nurse, or you're hiring a respiratory therapist, or whatever. How does that work? And so, I mean, but what they really want to say is, can somebody carry on this mission and ministry, yes, that occurred so many years ago? Are they mm-hmm still willing to carry on that ministry, even if they're not a Sister of Mercy? Mm-hmm. Can they still carry on that ministry? So say a little bit more about all that, because I don't think a lot of times our viewers understand that even though it's not just all Sisters of Mercy doing these things now, it's all those people who are acting mm-hmm in that mission of mercy on behalf of that legacy of the mission.
Right. To put it really simply, if you look at Matthew 25, it talks about feeding the hungry, clothing the naked. Those are the kinds of things that are the real basic mercy values. And we try to do those. Those are actually outward activities. But it's not just enough to say clothe the naked or feed the hungry. We also want to say, why? Why are they hungry? What's the root cause of this? Is there a social reason for this? And what can we look at to see what the justice issue is? for the mercies, we look a lot to the justice piece. So what's the question underneath the simpler thing of the action? Is there something a little bit deeper? So, so that's one of the things the sisters do throughout the world. We have mercies in 47 different countries. We have 7 what we call institutes of mercy, and the one here in that I belong to is the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas, which includes North, Central, and South America, as well as the Philippines, Jamaica, Guam. Okay. And our sisters are doing these kinds of things all over the place, and asking that question all the time. What's behind it? Why is that? And
so let's just pull it out a little bit for folks to see how that looks. So here in our area, say even the ministry that's being done through the outreach house and feeding our neighbors one meal at a time. Okay, why are some of those folks hungry? Okay, in many cases, sometimes mental illness, addictions, those kinds of things. So the mercy value underneath would be to say, okay, what can we also then do to advocate for better health care for the mentally ill? How do we get those folks medications? How do we get them some monitoring? How do we get some of that stuff to happen? How do we help make sure that anybody that's struggling with addictions, how can we make sure that can be addressed for those who really want to take care of that and to do that? And that's just one little teeny tiny example.
That's right.
But I'm just saying it kind of expands the whole thing. See, when you work with a sister, I don't care whether Sister Mercy or any sister, they won't let you off the hook. I just need you to understand that, okay? If you work with them, they're always going to be digging around underneath and poking and saying, well, where'd that come from and what can we do about that? So it's kind of like 2 feet of service. The first foot is taking care and doing the charity work and all that.
That's right.
But the second foot is advocating for the justice that goes along with it, which is always that's why they'll never let you rest. Just want you to know. So get to know them. It's wonderful. But I'm telling you, you're also in for a world of examination and digging deeper, okay?
Yes, and I try to do that with its children at school too. So when you're talking about those kinds of things, it's also putting that into their mind. What's below that and what's causing that? Where do you go out into the world to help take care of that and make the world better for people?
Yeah. And again, you guys have been doing that work around here for a long, long time.
Yes.
And that's, that's why some of those sisters went out and banged their up and said, okay, why are we having trouble with healthcare? Well, because there's nothing here in this area. How are we going to take care of that? And they got everybody to pony up, and say, okay, we'll take care of this and we'll do this. So again, it was I just think about the brilliance of some of the, how did you come up with an idea like that? But it was like, how can all this work together for the greater good? And that's an amazing thing.
Well, and that's the whole point. It's really the greater good and the mercy of God put into our feet to do it. And that's what is expected of us.
And that's what Catherine did. I mean, that's how she got started, right? Catherine Macaulay, who our high school is named for, our Catholic high school. She saw these needs in Ireland, and she just decided, okay, I'm gonna kind of put my money where my desires are, and that's exactly what she did.
That's right. And she found, and other women liked what she was doing and wanted to also be part of that. And it ended up that the bishop said, you know what, continue doing this, you need to become a sister. And so they did that so that they could continue on these works of mercy in education and in healthcare.
Yeah. And we're the recipients of that, how many years later? When did Catherine live again?
In the 1830s and 40s is when she was a Sister of Mercy.
Yeah, so we're really coming up on 200 years of mercy legacy relatively soon. But by that time we'll be at 155 years here. Yeah. So really within that first half a century pretty much is when, the mercies had already made their way to the U.S. And then to Joplin from Louisville, which is, again, pretty amazing.
It is,
yeah. So in terms of those mercy values, so we were talking a little bit about that, and you talked concretely about Matthew 25, okay, which is, again, for all of us, the corporal works of mercy, if you will, the works of taking care of everybody's bodies and souls and those things. But how do we enliven some of those? Because you guys have also got some language that you guys wrap around that.
We do. We have what we call the critical concerns. And for us, that means looking at things like nonviolence, anti-racism, immigration, women and children, so that we have these kinds of things that we put at the forefront of looking at our social justice kinds of things. What justice issues are underlying those kinds of needs in our world today?
Yeah, and it's just really a way of helping you focus and prioritize some of those,
right.
In terms of some of that.
Right, because you can't do every single kind of justice kind of issue that's out there. But we have some pretty strong areas that we really concentrate, and they all dovetail together because you'll find that one fits to the other, and they have sometimes the very same social, the social need happens to kind of dovetail with a couple of them. But it's always something you kind of bring to the forefront so that you are, as a Sister of Mercy, that you always have this kind of there that you're thinking about. And even as I teach and work with the children, those kinds of things, we kind of put them in a little quiet way. Some other sisters do it in a little loud way. I'm a little bit more quiet about it.
Are you saying that Sister Cabrini loud? No, I'm just kidding. No. But I said it. Never mind. Yep. I said it. If the words did not come out of your mouth, they came out of my mouth. We are blessed to have one other Sister of Mercy here in the area, and that's Sister Cabrini Kosh. And Cabrini used to work at Mercy, okay, but then she retired. And now, again, she's one of those folks that works at our outreach. She's our chief baking ministry. So at any rate, this is Sister Joan Margaret, and we're so pleased and we're so glad you came 10 years ago. We're pleased to have both of our Sisters of Mercy in this continuing legacy. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute.
Blessings and greetings of mercy to you. My name is Anna Nichols. I am a Sister of Mercy and currently the leader of Heritage and Spirituality at Mercy International Association. I love the fact that sisters throughout time have gone where they have been called to go, and they have often picked up ministries that they never intended to pick up. 25 years ago, there were 22,000 Sisters of Mercy globally. Today we're down to about 6,200 with Sister Rock and some of the others. But despite the fact there are 6,500 or 6,200 sisters left, there is an amazing number of women and men of mercy who are working alongside us, and that continues to expand and expand, and for me that is incredibly exciting. So as far as National Catholic Sisters Week, I really look at the legacy that they have passed on and the fact that so many women, men, young people are living mercy today. That really is for me what's significant.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning at Faith in Our Hometown. I got to say, the show is near and dear to my heart because it's a Catholic legacy that we're proud of, here in the Joplin area. 135 years ago, one of my predecessors, one of the pastors here in town, said, "I need some sisters to help with this work and with this ministry." And what a blessing it was when the Mercies arrived. And began our schools, and then 10 years later also began that work at the hospital. Again, what would Joplin look like if the Mercies had not been here? I've said through the years, we take a lot of knocks because we've made plenty of mistakes through the years as believers. We've made plenty of mistakes here as Catholics. If everybody says, "Well, I'd be a Catholic if they weren't so hypocritical," I said, "Well, we got room for a few more, so come and join us." But the whole point is that we got this one right. We got this one right when we invited the Mercies. So thanks for joining us this morning for Faith in Our Hometown. God bless you. Have a great Sunday and join us next week.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.